demolition of the old prison site. And that gathered really remarkable positive media coverage. Thank you, Muriel, for your help with that. We worked with DFCM and engineers to refine the infrastructure planning and traffic analysis coordinated with state leadership on financing strategies and given a number of presentations at conferences with city councils, collaborated with X Point Innovations on their project proposal, and also refined the innovation district concepts and much more. As I say, almost every meeting, our staff has been incredibly busy and doing great work. And let me just say, even before we get to the presentation by our IP Point partners, we appreciate very much their dedication and willingness to collaborate. So first item on the agenda is taking public comment. Let's start with anyone here assembled. Anyone here wishes to take advantage of public comment and make a comment? Don't see anyone online indicating? No one from the public either. So let's move on to item number 3, taking up the business of approving our minutes of our November 8th meeting. I think we've all been given a copy of those minutes. Chair would entertain a motion with regard to approving those minutes.
Mr. Chair, this is Troy Walker. I move we approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. The motion is that we approve those. Do I have a second? Second by Representative Handy. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously, and the minutes are approved. Moving on to item number 4 of our agenda, I've already mentioned this item. We will be hearing today from Matt Howe and Abby Eamon, who are our Innovation Point partner representatives here today. And they will present the development where we are on our development plans for phase 1. Let me provide a little background before I turn some time to them. You will recall at our November meeting, Innovation Point partners presented some conceptual revisions to the phase 1 of the framework plan. The board, we approved those conceptual revisions, and we directed IPP and staff to work together to refine them into a schematic development plan for phase 1 for our review in this meeting today. Our partners are here today, IPP, to share with us those latest plans. So with that now and a little bit of background, we'll turn the time to Matt and Abby.
Chairman Snow and distinguished members of the board, we appreciate this opportunity to be in front of you today. My name is Kip Wadsworth with Innovation Point Partners. To my right is Lance Bullen with Innovation Point Partners. 6 months ago, during the presentation process, we met, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and we worked hard and we presented you with the proposed site plan and our vision for the point. Over the last 6 months since then, we've worked really hard. We've worked hard with Jim and with Alan and with Scott and with the Palmsla team, with our architects, engineers, and in-house staff to come up and refine that plan. And today we have the opportunity to present to you what that final vision and that final site plan is. We're so excited to be part of this project and to have the opportunity to work together hand in hand with Palmsla and the outreach that they have done with all the citizens of Utah, and take all that information and boil it down into what we think is a really, really cool, innovative, and one-of-a-kind plan. So today we're going to present that to you. Abby and Matt will be up here in a minute, but first I want to take the time, turn it over to Mr. Bullen.
Thanks, Kip. Yeah, I echo many sentiments that Kip shared. These plans are emblematic of hundreds and hundreds of hours of collaboration with many stakeholders, with DFCM, with Palmsla, with traffic engineers, with designers, with key stakeholders that represent different parts and aspects of the community. And so it's we feel a major milestone to be here today, to be able to present this plan, and just are very excited and grateful for the opportunity we've had to collaborate effectively with Palmsla and with the representatives of this great opportunity. So we will turn the time over to Matt and Abby to go through the design, and then a little bit later, I will be giving an update on the development agreement progress we're making as well.
Thank you. Matt, Abby, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, board members. We are very excited to be with you today. What we are going to share with you is a preview of the progress we've been making on the plan specifically related to phase one of the master plan. We have been working diligently, really firing on all cylinders with parallel pathways in the advancement of the design process along with the agreements. And today we're going to go in a little bit more detail around the phase one plans. Happy to share those with you. And as always, we welcome questions as we go through the presentation. We're going to walk you through first the development plan for phase one, and then we're actually going to go through the experience, what it will be like to walk through the point. And we'll hopefully be able to help you imagine a day in the life of the point going forward. First, the development plan itself. So a quick reminder, we were very fortunate in this particular project to receive the framework plan that really showcased the very best ideas from incredible consultants and experts along with UTOMs. Through the framework plan, what we received is this opportunity to truly build a city the way that it's always been envisioned, with density on transit and a mix of uses. The first phase of the project is noted here as outlined. Note that the project itself is 600 acres. Phase one is 99 acres, of which 66 are developable. I would also highlight for you that we're really building out from the center of the bullseye. And so we have to bring all the infrastructure into the project in order to execute phase one at the density and vibrancy envisioned. We're going to break it down a little bit further, but notice that the entire site is bisected by the River to Range Trail, one of the signature elements, along with kind of the connectivity throughout a number of different parks and trails. So you may recall when we were here in November, we highlighted the Partee diagram, and that's really what inspired us as we advanced the master plan. The River to Range Trail is then vertically intersected by our Central Park and a pedestrian pathway connected throughout. We then overlaid the pedestrian promenade, which is envisioned as a shopping street that'll be a shared street between pedestrians and vehicles, showcasing retailers. And those intentionally run parallel so that they are complementary to one another, but not congesting each other. And here you have kind of a zoomed out version of phase one. We'll go into a lot more detail as to how we've arrived to this mix of uses, but we're very excited because what you see is a blend of retail, restaurants, and residential properties, along with office, in order to deliver on this mixed use vision that we have for the point. Things that we would highlight for you here are how we've broken up into smaller neighborhoods, the big ideas, but they're all complementary in the way that they intersect. We're kicking off the project with what are envisioned to be some of the primary community amenities, the River to Range Trail, the promenade, the Central Park, along with the infrastructure enhancements that need to happen and improvements such as Porter Rockwell Boulevard. Go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks, Abby, and wonderful to be back here again this morning. So on screen, we wanted to, before we started talking about the experience at the point, just give some general parameters of the levels of square footage, the overall program that the point will be delivering in this initial sequence. So here you're seeing a breakout of what that program uses are by color and also by square footage on the right-hand side. So we're looking at a total amount of program of about 5.7 million square feet. So a significant investment and development for our companies, and something that we're excited to share with you today. Next. The initial sequence totals what we're going to be calling this promenade that Abby had mentioned earlier, which really does put the focus on the experience at the pedestrian level, people arriving at the point through a host of different multimodal avenues, whether that's by car, by transit, by bicycle, which we'll talk about later at the integrated park systems. This is really an opportunity that puts the experience on the pedestrian. So getting people out of their vehicles, arriving and being able to experience this recreational retail experience, but really this neighborhood and this immersive environment that allows people to walk freely from one end of the street to the other, which is about 1,600 square feet from one end to the other. So visitors, Utahns alike, will be able to get out of their cars with their families, really experience this entire project on foot. When we zoom in on the plan and what this looks like, you'll see that left to right spine of that pedestrian zone just running parallel to the River Range, represented in green below. This will be an intersecting network of pedestrian pathways that will allow people to migrate from the Central Park down to the River Range, walking through these very walkable city blocks that are really designed for the pedestrian and for that experience. We think this is going to be a wonderful experience for visitors and for Utahns throughout the state to come to the point to understand what this kind of new urbanism feel is. And that experience is really integrated with this close relationship to nature that Utahns have such a lovely relationship with today.
Things that we would highlight about this plan, it is an evolution from the framework plan, and we've really put it through the rigor of a developer lens. So you're seeing, for us, we want to make sure that we can deliver on the vision, and that does come down to things like parking and egress, loading docks, signage. And it's important that we can make sure we can attract the tenants that we have, that we've committed to bringing here. So it's about feasibility and function blended with the large scale vision of the project. It is truly just an evolution, but things we would also highlight. We feel very strongly about our event center. So the promenade is bookended with the event center, some hospitality. We feel strongly that there'll be a strong hotel component of the project. And then the parking, we have a parking district that allows people to arrive and then traverse on foot. Again, all designed to attract people to experience the point.
And Abby's absolutely correct. So we don't get to do development unless we solve those logistics, ingress, egress, loading, the things that we frankly don't find the most exciting things to talk about on a project like this. But we have run this plan through a rigorous study on a parcel by parcel basis to ensure that those logistic issues don't come and haunt us later in life as this project emerges. So what you're seeing here is a very thoughtful, pragmatic approach to our parking locations and making sure that those are integrated in a way that the point doesn't feel like a district that is dominated by any level of parking presence. So you'll notice that these parking locations are purposely hidden behind programs so that as people are walking through the promenade and walking through the district, they're not surrounded by parking garages. And in the instances where we do have those facades shown, our intent is to have those conditioned in a way that they don't feel as if you're being surrounded by that parking requirement. So really excited that we've come to a solution that we all collectively felt was the right approach to getting people out of their cars, but then kind of forgetting, frankly, that the automobile exists within the district.
So those are the big ideas on the design. And now we're going to walk you through the experience, what it'll be like to be at the point. The promenade, we will continue to reinforce this because it is a signature element of the project. It is how pedestrians and visitors will experience the point. It's carefully curated to make sure that these retailers, it's a blend of both national retailers and local boutiques, along with eateries, and envisioned such that they are all able to coexist and they're symbiotic. Remember that as IPP, not only are we developers of real estate, we're operators of real estate, especially large scale retail and entertainment districts across the country. And so we understand that programming is so paramount to the success of the retail promenade. Not only will we ensure that our retailers have access to the shoppers and diners and residents of Utah, but we'll be programming elements or events throughout the year. So you'll see a variety of farmers markets and different seasonal activities that will bring people to the site, so that that difference between the indoor retail and the outdoor experience, we're really blurring the lines intentionally. It's a significant investment. So what I would caution everyone about is our first phase, we're delivering some of the key components that define the point. And that's part of why the density that we have is there to justify the investment that we're making in the exterior space, both the promenade and the river to range. Forgive the Lego blocks, but this is how we better understand this space in 3D. These are only meant to be depictions of really product type. One of our other key components is that we'll ensure there's a variety of architects, materials. We want it to feel more like an organic village that's been delivered over time, not just a new construction project. And so you'll see a lot of diversity in the facade types and the materials. But in order to understand that sense of place and what it's like to walk down this street, we use these tools to communicate that vision. Here you're looking up over the promenade, and what you have in the foreground in blue, Matt's going to talk about soon. It's our innovation district component, kind of a vertical interpretation of Convergence Hall. And then lining the promenade, you have both the shops at the ground floor and then residences and office above. Zooming in even further on the promenade, we have really thought about bay depths and signage opportunities and what each of these retailers needs. In order for a retail development to be successful, you have to think about those tenants' ability to cohabitate, to coexist, and have that signature ability, signage opportunity. So many retailers are looking for not being identified as only a retailer of the point, but as a retailer with their own unique branding and identity. And so we'll allow that to happen at the pedestrian level. And those signature retailers are then coexisting with the spill out dining, and the multimodal transit is a major component of this project. We will allow for vehicular activity and loading. It's very important to our retailers, but as much as possible, we want to coax people to utilize the bikes, scooters, strollers, and be out on foot.
Excuse me, Abby.
Yes.
It just help me to understand when
Sure.
we're looking at this schematic of the promenade.
Mhm.
Does that allow auto traffic through there as well, or is that all pedestrian, bicycle?
We intentionally converted to allow occasional vehicular traffic. A few different purposes this serves. First, it is those deliveries for the retailers. Those delivery vehicles need to access that, even if it's off hours, they need to be able to reach that right in front of the retail users. Second is for ADA access or delivery of individuals. It's ideal to occasionally allow.
Sure.
Now, the traffic calming measures and frankly, the inconvenience of it, most people will prefer to go straight to the parking structures. So you'll see limited vehicular traffic here. And then finally, we've designed it such that we can shut off the promenade for events. So should we have a large scale event, then we will expect that the promenade will be shut off completely. We don't want to do that permanently. We want to allow for delivery and off hours and things like that.
It's a little education component if I
Yes.
visit and realize to park and
Mhm.
partake of it, I've got to find those parking areas.
Yes,
Yeah.
but don't worry, we've got a wayfinding and signage plan, plenty of education, and by the time that the point opens, I'm sure there'll be an app that'll tell you exactly where to
Sure.
park.
Makes sense. That'd be wonderful. Thank you. Welcome.
And one more view of the promenade before we move on. This is the portion of the promenade that would be envisioned to be closed off. So they'll have bollards in the street that allow us to close it off completely to vehicles at key elements throughout the year. The other thing we do is create these little quiet respite spots where people, this will be a very active area. We understand that's part of why we have such wide sidewalks and dedicated lanes for each type of transit. but then the quiet respites, hopefully that, whether you're visiting River to Range or find a small alcove near the Central Park, that we integrate nature and those quiet moments throughout. Shared streets is really what we were just speaking about, this idea that vehicles and multimodal transit coexist, along with supporting pop-ups, everything from food trucks to events, thinking about what can this place be in a true 18-hour city experience. And here's a view of the promenade. Here you can get a sense that it is a pedestrian focused zone, but we do allow vehicular deliveries to traverse the site as needed. And then you can see a little bit the attention to detail. How are we thinking about abilities for signage to integrate? What are we doing with our outdoor furniture, our landscaping? All of that is going to contribute to the quality of the point. And we understand that we have to deliver quality in order to achieve the vision.
So thanks, Abby. We've now talked about the promenade, which is a pretty grand scale as it relates to just the experience. And in addition to that grand experience on the promenade, we're also dialing in just these small, what we're calling just moments for memories to be kind of experienced and revisited as relates to smaller scale, more intimate settings. And one of those is this really important link between Central Park and River to Range, highlighted here. Probably easier on the next slide. But what we're focused on is this idea of an outdoor dining hall that could really spill out into these pedestrian-only intersections that you see represented here on the southern end, closest to River to Range. That will be a pedestrian-only zone. So kind of leaving the vehicle integration that's just lightly touched on the promenade. And then we have these breakaway alleys, and we have several of these that are much more cozy as it relates to the scale, and something that where families can really kind of allow their children to play on adjacent park equipment or other kind of integrated things that are a little bit more intimate. And we wanted to highlight a few of those for you here today. So Taste of Place is really focused on the food hall experience that's going to be located in that link between Central Park and River to Range. Next slide. What we see this as is just those magical moments that are really truly activated, whether it's morning breakfasts or evenings lit by festoon lights and soft lighting that creates those magical experiences and memories throughout the year, and are really kind of curated for the season. And we see these as those really lovely, well-lit areas that allow us to congregate and kind of quiet things down a little bit, as opposed to the larger scale as well. So we have a mix of all of these. So that'll include rooftop dining, indoor, outdoor spill out for dining on the street, as well as casual quick service for grab and go for those who are commuting in on the bike trails and continue on their exercise and their path.
Unfortunately, our team has extensive experience executing on food halls. I think food halls is something people love to talk about, but it's hard work in order to foster small scale users, whether it's food trucks or aspiring businesses, and bring them in and make sure that we're able to encourage them to make that transition into brick and mortar. You see a blend of kiosks as well as small scale retail storefronts. All of that is by design, and we work really closely with each of those operators to make sure that they can find success at the point. Those dining moments, it's what brings people to the location. And so we put a lot of emphasis on how we curate and grow those users, because we understand that it's the dining experience is what draws you in, and we have to make sure that it's truly successful. So we think of it as, an investment in the large scale success of the development, and it ultimately becomes an amenity for all of the users that exist above. So whether it's the innovation district or the office users, they will choose to be at the point because of what we're doing at the ground plane. So that's why we make such a patient investment around making sure that these spaces function the way that we expect them to.
And that's an important point just to mention. This, we can stay here, is that the food hall actually opens up the opportunity for us to include smaller entrepreneur companies. So whereas the promenade might be a larger location for corporates to be located, this is a real opportunity for local Utah entrepreneurs that are in food service to participate in the point. This is about inclusion and about the opportunity to experience something as the visitor, something that's unique to Utah, but also as an entrepreneur and business operator, there's a welcome sign for everyone to really participate and contribute to this experience that we're trying to build here. So here represented in this, sorry, Abby, represented in this, you're seeing that space looking north towards the Central Park, the river range behind you, that kind of small, cozy moment that you have with these, the space in between these city blocks, and just how that could feel as it relates to the pedestrian zone. So something that's significantly more cozy than the promenade.
The last thing I'd highlight here is you're starting to see that blend of architectural and sculptural. We all know that art program is super important to the overall vision, but also because we know it's important to Utahns. We understand that the focal point and other investigations around that art identity will continue, but we are expecting to integrate it into the design and execution of the project. And so you'll see that wayfinding signage and art are all paramount. And then we'll even have experiential art elements so that every time you visit the point, you'll see something new.
So Innovation Row, another one of these small cozy moments that is going to be integrated along with the Innovation Convergence Hall that we've been working with Jefferson Moss on, and super excited to showcase some of the exciting things that are happening here in Utah as relates to the intellectual property, but also just the cross section between higher education and the private sector that we believe should be showcased. And what better place to do that than the point, and frankly, right on the front row of the promenade. Next slide. So represented in this kind of rounded corner blue volume, you'll see that we're locating this convergence hall idea directly above the retail, directly above the promenade as it relates to its relationship. And we think this is going to be a really exciting beacon for the Innovation District and everything that's going to be happening here. So travelers coming in, seeing what's happening in Utah, but also just being able to see this exciting collaborative opportunity happening among the city street and among that kind of pedestrian experience. So we've been working with Jefferson on this and still iterating on this, but excited to kind of find a location that is front and center. And on the back end of the promenade, next slide, is the opportunity for us to invite some more of these kind of smaller entrepreneur type uses and other small eclectic storefronts. So whether that's workshops or maker spaces or pop-up installations for the things that are happening in Utah to be showcased on the retail level, or if it's a temporary pop-up art installation, we think this is just going to be a vibrancy as it relates to showcasing what's happening throughout the state, and a place that people will want to come and visit to kind of see what's happening in the state of Utah.
So what we've established is really a sliding scale of storefront opportunities. And so you're starting to see that ideally there is a place for everyone at the point and for every user. This idea of bringing the Innovation District, which admittedly is still in the early phases of development, but bringing it right into the center, suspending it above the action, and then creating opportunities for higher education to have the connection to both headquarters tenants, office tenants, but also that pedestrian experience. So you're intending for that collision of ideas to happen. And now we're letting everyone excel in their particular area of expertise. And so our innovators are innovating, and at the ground floor, our retailers are meeting their needs with amenities that are accessible to the public.
Yeah, that animated cross-pollination and ideation of ideas, we think that's important to foster. And we believe that's going to happen on the ground floor, and just allowing those people to use Jefferson's word of bumpability is so important to creating these idea shares and these mind shares that we think are so important to the state of Utah, but also the point of the mountain.
Oh,
I
and
have a
finally-
question.
Yes,
Sir, I
please.
apologize. for
No,
No,
please,
no,
we'd
you're
love
just
to-
Could we go back to the slide before this one?
Mhm.
Just for my information, where situated here, how far away is that restaurant walkable area that?
It's
we-
right
Oh,
here.
yeah, it's directly adjacent.
So almost across this cross section is the vertical connection between Central Park
Okay,
and River to Range. And that's where we expect the Taste of Place to occur, specifically here, but it actually flows all the way across the promenade.
okay.
And then Innovation Row is a little bit more of a business, a small scale business incubator type
Sure.
pedestrian experience. And then the other thing that we liked is, and heard from Jefferson Moss, is the connection between the Innovation District and the hotel. So we do expect this to be a location that people go to, it's a destination. People come in to attend events, conferences, meetings. And so we wanted to make sure that there was a direct connection between those.
Thanks. Well, the Innovation Row is the restaurants and this diversity that we talked about is very accessible to the folks who are also going to be part of that innovation. Center.
Correct.
Precisely.
Okay.
Everything
thanks.
is so tempting that you'll only walk. It's too easy and too fun to experience it on foot.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then finally, Central Park. So this is a different type of recreation space. We'll talk about River to Range next, but Central Park is a public open space. We expect it to be high level of design, high quality landscape investment. This is something that will be seasonally adapting as well as programmed to encourage people to come visit. But it will be similar to Clyde Warren Park or other major green space investments where the space around the park will also just be paramount. And that's why we have some really signature office space intended to blend the line or blur the line between the kind of civic and office users flanking Central Park. It's 2.5 acres of open space, all envisioned to be delivered in phase 1, ideally with a transit connection to the north and then the taste of place to the south. We do also have
So that
small-scale
parcel
restaurants.
that we're
Yeah.
looking at is 2.5 acres?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay.
We have a view of Central Park. We're now facing south. These restaurants that flank Central Park, again, they help us with activation. So we're thinking that we have an indoor events venue identified here in purple, and that'll blend with kind of an outdoor amphitheater that'll happen at Central Park so that those can be supported with different programming or even symbiotic programming. Again, looking at the programming and seasonal activities, movies in the park, this is where you come to bring your children to play. We'll have different types of playscapes along with just outdoor dining and investment in the landscape typology. Here's a sense of what that ice skating rink at Central Park could look like.
I think our vision for Central Park as well is this idea that it can be activated for seasonal use, such as an ice skating rink. But then there's this warm opportunity for this just to be a destination for the day, where you throw out a picnic from something that you grabbed on the promenade and really kind of occupy this space with hours of time and enjoyment for your family, and really kind of a place to breathe as it relates to this urban center that we're creating here.
And finally, River to Range Trail, which is truly the paramount element that we feel is so signature Utah. It's that love of the outdoors and the connection to the mountains is part of what we understand to be what will drive people to the point, not just from inside Utah, but from outside Utah that want to be here because of that connection to the outdoors. River to Range Trail is wide. It's intended to be a byway for pedestrians and bicyclists to all coexist, along with a really nice landscaping and pedestrian sculptural elements that are integrated throughout. We almost see this as an opportunity to kind of create parkfront property. Those locations for both residences and offices users will be some of the most in demand. We expect people to want to look over on the River to Range Trail and ideally utilize their lunch break or after work to hop on their bike and go experience nature in Utah.
Yeah, I think, Abby just said it, but this unique relationship to the outdoors that Utahns share, it's a core value, and it's the reason why people will continue to move to this state. And this is an opportunity for, yes, it's transit, it's multimodal, people to access the hundreds of miles of trails that River Range will connect to in Draper, but it's also just this celebration of this recreational experience that runs parallel to that promenade that we've been talking about. And it's so important as it relates to that relationship and kind of celebrating its true use of the outdoors, not just something to be looked upon, but something to really invite you in and pull you through. So it's a vital thread that we're integrating into phase 1.
A few of the ways that we expect that to operate, nature walks, contemplative moments, kind of family elements and zones, along with active recreation. The investment in active recreation amenities that are defining a characteristic of the point. We've now made it all the way through all of those experience moments, a couple things we would add as we move to just these last couple of renderings for you is that in order to get the ground plan amenities envisioned here, two things are happening. It's the density and then allowing for all of this to happen in such close quarters. While there are beautiful parks throughout Utah, what you're seeing here is the blend of development, density, and with recreation and open space, because they do coexist so well. So you can go visit the point and walk between all of these experience elements and really have not traveled very far, but it is all meant to be centered together and coexist in that way. Here you have a vision of River to Range. This is a little bit more at the pedestrian scale. You see some of the kiosks, the diverse building types, a blend of residential and office. The River to Range will work as part of our passive retention strategy to address stormwater and rainwater, but it's really envisioned to be very a low water, drought tolerant landscaping, low water use space. And again, you see the dedicated pathways for both pedestrians and bicyclists throughout. One more view of River to Range, just because we're fond of it. So we feel like the views of River to Range are going to be one of the signature moments that people embrace. And then you get a sense of what we're thinking or contemplating for our landscape, as well as vistas and bridges, pedestrian views, and special moments.
Are there any other questions before we turn it back over to Kip and Lance to close us out?
Questions from the board? Before you close it out, going back to the River to Range, and Muriel can speak better to this probably than me, but my recollection was when we surveyed the people, when the first plan came out, the framework plan, where we laid out the River to Range, that was one of the most popular items, features that really attracted interest of the people. And it occurs to me when I see this, that it's the kind of feature that will be attractive to the people that work there, the people that live close by, the people that make an event by coming to visit and participate and partake. And it's just one of the great things. And I've said this before, it's one of the features that we can do, I think, as a state, that if it's all private, profit driven, those things are hard to do. But I think you've done a great job of incorporating this feature, and also in recognizing, I think, the value for those users. And so just a comment, it wasn't a question. Any other comments or questions from the group or from the board? I don't see any hands or any. Oh, let me get to you, Jim. Do you have a light?
Mayor Walker also has a comment.
I'll make sure that it is there.
Now,
Okay, try that.
just a comment that I appreciate the continued collaboration and working together. I think that the refinements that have been made are an improvement to the original plan that we had, and really excited about this development and how it's progressing forward. So thank you for your work and the work of Director Matheson and his team as well.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Mayor Walker, if you'd like to unmute, we'll call
Hey,
you.
can you hear me now?
We can hear
Yes, we
you.
can.
Thank you. I do like this rendering right here, especially larger buildings they're in. And the River to Range and the discussion about integrating, the Central Park. I mean, this is certainly, along the lines of my vision that I've had for this site the whole time. So I hope these aren't just renderings. I hope we're really moving, like this direction. This looks like the beginning of what I hoped it would be. I don't see a baseball stadium anywhere in there. There's got to be a spot in there somewhere.
Just
for
off
that.
screen.
Yeah.
We can zoom out. Yeah.
There, yeah, or football stadium. It could be a joint sport arena would be fine with me. But no, I think this is this kind of density is what we were looking for. It's what was selected. Lowry, we've been on this process now for as long as, a long time. And in the Envision Utah process, this level of density was the level that the public overwhelmingly selected when they were given the choice. So, and then I guess the only other question I have, I don't see anything in here with respect to how transit will integrate into this. Maybe I was not paying attention, but just maybe if you could address the transit, is that the loop right there? And then how will we get from the main line, sort of circulating into this core? So that maybe that's my only other question, but otherwise this looks good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. Let me just, before you answer that, this has been a dream of Mayor Walker, seeing the prison
Mhm.
moved and seeing this developed. And so we're grateful to have him part of this, representing Draper and his constituents, but also because he's always had this dream, and we appreciate his contribution. With respect to transit, I noticed that there were 2 transit stations outlined. And so part of, as you review that, is if you talk about the value of having those 2 stations versus 1.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, the plan is transit ready. So we are reserving seats for future transit stations. And the importance of those are significant, both from our investor and lender pools, as well as we believe the experience for Utahns coming to the point of the mountain, either for work, for visiting, or future residents, frankly, connecting to the greater network throughout the state. So those stations are ready today. They will be implemented for the future development of those stations. And we believe that the density that we're delivering here will cause need for possibly 2 stations to be delivered for different purposes. Because even though we're focusing on phase 1 in this specific drawing, there's additional density beyond this. And we are thinking long term, not just about this initial phase, but the entire 600 acres that the point of the mountain represents. So we're trying to build for future proofing to allow that growth to take place and take hold, to make sure that we're not looking at things in isolation just for this initial phase.
Thank you. Could I ask you, Matt, Abby, both of you, based on your experience and the work that you've done, how important, how essential is this transit and getting that as part of this project?
Well,
Tell us about that, Ken.
sure, it's paramount, and I'm gonna invite Abby to jump in on anything I miss here, but it's vital to the success for this level of density to attract people from out of state to move to Utah from coastal cities that are used to this public transit network, to get them to important places and to reduce the importance to parking their automobiles and that dependence of the automobile to experience the state. We jokingly made the mention earlier of the logistics necessary to pull these projects off require parking today. But the future of this district is really, its foundation is really in the necessary need for transit to exist. And there's no greater economic development catalyst than transit as it relates to the development opportunity that comes with that level of investment and infrastructure from the state. So we recognize that that's a big ask, but the excitement around that opportunity to arrive at a place of business or a home that's transit adjacent is incredibly important to our corporate tenants, but also our future Utahns that are going to move here from our coastal cities. So.
Exactly. I mean, it is such a foundational element. All of these things truly coexist. So the aspirations we have around sustainability, the enhancements we've incorporated, all of that relies on the ability to integrate transit. And no other opportunity in the country exists where you can look at 600 acres and say, what's the proper infrastructure density, and blend of amenities to deliver this in a way that will serve the community for decades to come. And transit is such a key component of that. It's also true for our users and our investors. Transit and specifically being able to rely on that transit stop in perpetuity drives investment decisions and drives leasing activity, but ultimately is how we're able to achieve some of our sustainability goals. So it's all truly integrated.
One last thing, just worth mentioning, since Mayor Walker mentioned it, he challenged us to bring the big pencil and to, really show a level of concentrated program here that we're excited about bringing to Utah. And transit allows us to build more program and less parking. I mean, it's a direct correlation from our construction lenders, our banks, our institutional investors, that with that transit adjacency, we actually can build greater product, a greater experience for those that come to the point. So we think it's paramount and excited to have this site be ready to receive that when the day comes.
Thank you. For my benefit, maybe others, I think when we talk about programs and programming, tell us, I know that's basic to you, but help us
Sure.
define that to understand it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we work with our property management teams well in advance. We forecast out the year and we start to think about what types of events. For us, making sure that we have community benefit, philanthropic elements, health and wellness events. So because we want the point to exude the same level of commitment to environmental, social, and governance initiatives through not just execution of the development, but also in the way that we program these events. So we'll start to think about what does the calendar year look like? What are different types of events that could happen in the weekends and evenings throughout the year. And so we'll come up with themes. We'll have events around inclusive aspects of the project. We'll have events around certain holidays, and then even just kind of theme events. And so people will come in different costumes or different passions that they're excited about, because we will always have different program elements that tie in, and then that'll feed off of what we're doing with our event venues. And so you'll be able to visit the website or the app, learn more about the events that we have on the horizon, learn more about, if there's any parking or special accommodations you need to take. Is it a good day to take mass transit to the point because we expect a lot of visitors there? What can you forecast? So programming is first about planning those elements and then communicating and executing them well. And we understand that by continually doing that, it will bring more people to the point and help our retailers be more successful.
Thank you. That helps. This becomes a real integrated plan, and rather than building development and then trying to figure out programming after the fact to fit, it becomes integrated at the outset. Do I have that right?
You
Yes,
absolutely
absolutely
do.
correct.
You understand
All right.
perfectly.
Got a question or comment from Jim?
Thank you, Representative. So I want to address the question on transit, on how important that is.
Okay.
The development that's been proposed it's magnificent, but it's not going to be successful if we cannot find other ways to get to this site. I love the drawings right now, but if Porter Rockwell is largely the only way in and out of this site, it's not going to look like this picture shows, right? It's going to look vastly different. We've got to find other ways to get traffic around the site, around to the north and to the east, and more access to I-15. And transit is also a key player in that. If we can't find the number of people that will be wanting to come here, that will be living here, working here, and coming to and from this site, it can't be done effectively without other egresses and other means of transit to be able to support that. So it's critical just to the success. It's highly critical to the success of this project. Go back one picture, the picture that Mayor Walker said that he loves so much. Can you go, which
Yes.
one that was?
There we
Thank
There
you.
we
I
go.
like that one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Look at the roads in Main Street and Porter Rockwell. That's going to look vastly different if we don't if we are not able to use transit in some ways and get other egresses into this site. I mean, the way that looks now on there, it's great drawing. I do really love that. It's just not going to look the same. It's not going to appear the same. And just the movement of people in this walkable city trying to cross Port of Rockwell is going to be very difficult if they have to do that in 2 light changes
Right.
instead of 1. It's going to, in my mind, kill people just won't want to come here because of that very issue. So if we can't get people to the site, then it doesn't matter how great the site is, and transit is really critical to that, as well as other options to get to the site. I'll get off my soapbox.
Jim, thanks for mentioning that. No, it's a soapbox we share, because I think one of the things that we've been focused on, yes, we're talking about transit in the context of that question, but there is no single source answer for the solution for how we get people to and from the point. It is a constellation of multimodal solutions that really work together in concert. So having transit will not only be the only thing that will work. Will have to be a mixed modality of people arriving by bicycle, other means of people movers, or other systems that will be integrated over time. But your comment on congestion and getting people in and out are the exact things that we've been so fortunate to work with Alan's team with through these breakout sessions, addressing transit and other enhancements that we've been working through. So it is top of mind, and you're absolutely right. It's something that needs to be addressed.
Fixed forms of transit are super important for the long-term success of this project. And so when you think about truly, we have a spectrum of residential offerings intentionally, because we want to address housing affordability through the density that we're offering. You think about that, you have to think about all Utahns and the different forms of transportation that they'll be using to arrive to the site. It's part of why transit is so important in order for us to have a truly inclusive community.
Thank you. Anything further, Jim?
No.
Thanks for your comments
We
and
did have
questions.
2 questions that arrived on the chat publicly, and so we're happy to address those if that's all right.
I don't have those, and so if you'll just
I'll read the
maybe read
question
them.
and then give an answer.
Thank you.
Roy's got his hand up as well.
So if transit proves successful in the early stages of phase 1, is there a possibility to reduce the structured parking and increase the housing or commercial? Wonderful question. We'd love to address that. At 5.7 million square feet in phase 1, we're not inclined to increase the amount of density just yet. But what we have done is we've designed the initial portion of phase 1 such that it meets the parking needs today and market demands today, but with the hope that as we deliver something that is truly pedestrian oriented, a 15-minute city where people live, work, and play, and ideally is accessible to transit, we expect to see those parking requirements drop down, ratchet down over time. And our development plan contemplates that. So ideally, we would be building less parking with each subsequent phase in response to the way that the development is organically growing. Second, I would add, anything you'd add on the parking components?
I love talking about parking, but no, you nailed it.
Second is there an opportunity for a nonprofit performing arts element? Love this question. Charitable contributions and philanthropic efforts are a major component. It's part of why we made a commitment within our submission that we would be putting a portion of our vertical construction investment towards arts. And so we understand that. And by arts, we don't just mean physical art or sculptural elements. We also mean experiential art like the performing arts. Then the fact that we're identifying 2 locations for event venues, those would be incorporated to work with the local performing arts groups, especially our amphitheater in Central Park. So the programming will allow us to showcase local performing arts groups, because nowhere is more talented than Utah, and let people sit on the stage and perform. So that's all meant to be collaboratively identified, and truly that's where we rely on our local groups and stakeholders to help us learn what they need in order to utilize the amenities at the point.
Fine, thank you for responding to those questions. Mayor Walker has his hand up. Mayor?
I see the fixed transit. I appreciate that. What about, we've talked a lot about this circulator, autonomous vehicle type stuff. How would we integrate the circulator? Because that might alleviate some of my dear friend Jim's concerns about my picture.
Sure.
We'll go
maybe
to another image that shows, so we are preserving the pathway for the circulator. It's always been contemplated. It was something we understood from the framework plan and believe that the density at the point demands something like the circulator. It isn't included in phase 1 here, but it's always expected to be on the horizon. And so we're preserving the circulator. It's just, it goes a little off screen here in this image, but you get a sense that we do expect there to be some kind of circulator maintained throughout the execution of the project.
Yeah, Mayor Walker, you can see the loop that's being created that really goes over Porter Rockwell and loops back into phase one. I don't know if you can do that with your highlighter. I'm terrible at trying
Well,
to keep
what I was wondering about is some smaller, type vehicle that could circulate in between, the buildings you have now. Like, is there, we're not precluding some technology that might work. I've seen some different things with smaller autonomous vehicles that can move around. Are you saying you can't fit it in this part, or?
Not remotely. It is what's unique about this is the density. And so only 1,600 linear feet. It is just so attractive to walk. But we've executed a number of projects that include things like shuttles and other forms of transit throughout. And so I think we're very open to those ideas. Part of it just comes down to the operational side. So we'll study, we'll survey individuals who visit, we'll evaluate options, and we'll execute plans to move people throughout the site based on how the development is performing.
Yeah, we've studied quite a bit the autonomous mover. It's something we're excited about, but it's still in its infancy as it relates to being rolled out. So as we continue to keep a close eye on how that technology is being developed, the project is adaptable to receive that when the technology is ready.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Representative Handy.
Yeah, that brings to, the board has heard me talk about this before, but several years ago, I had an opportunity to go to the U.S. Department of Transportation's demonstration site to Columbus, their smart city site. And they have smart cars there that take people around, move around the city, which you're aware of, but that can develop as the technology is available and as it's reliable as you go forward.
Well, the weather today tells us we
Yeah.
need to think about all of the,
Yeah.
there are days that it's wonderful to walk between the buildings, but there will be days when we need alternative solutions.
Thank you.
Thank
May-
you for all of your patience.
Thank you.
Mayor Walker, you still have your hand up. Did you have another comment, or are we okay to go forward?
Good to go forward. Sorry, I'll lower it.
That's okay. Let me ask you just one other question, and I think you've mentioned it in passing, but I'd really like the commission to understand, the board. We talk about the value of transit for the users, for the folks that are going to live there, work there, and come to visit, and getting in and out of there. But would you talk a little bit about why it's important for attracting investors? These are sophisticated folks who look at these plans, and I'm assuming this becomes an important element as you undertake attracting the kind of money, the capital it's going to take to do this.
I certainly appreciate that question, and thank you for asking it. So IPP would not make the argument that transit is the cheapest way to move an individual, but it is the greatest catalyst for economic investment. And our institutional investors, our banks, frankly, just look at transit-oriented development, the permanence of a rail transit station with a different lens. And there's a different appetite and different funds set aside for TOD, transit-oriented development, than there are traditional development models. So the importance of transit as it relates to the economic interests from out-of-state institutions to invest in Utah significantly widens as we introduce TOD, transit-oriented development, as an investment opportunity. It just sets it apart as a different type of investment that there is, frankly, there's a smaller amount of opportunities that have that adjacency to it. And we said this earlier in the presentation, but that adjacency to those stations allows us to work the financial models differently, to build less when I say program, less garage space for parking stalls and more office space, more residential spaces, because we can actually lower the allocation of reserved parking for those types and uses. So there is just an enormous appetite for transit-oriented development from our banks, our institutional investors that we're used to working with for that type of investment. And we believe that if we are really trying to get as much interest in today's current capital markets climate, that is an important element to the success of the point.
I would even
Thank
go
you.
so far as to say that we have almost a perfect checklist for the development of the point. And what you've already granted us through the framework plan and all the visioning that's happened is there's been a total transition in the way that capital is flowing, and it is around sustainability and making sure that that investment is feeding those larger goals around making successful investments that are also minimizing their impact on the environment and creating inclusive, safe spaces. So if we are able to execute on our reductions in carbon, our density, our reductions in energy use, water use, all these other elements that are so paramount, without transit, we then are not able to secure the very best opportunities for investment. And truly, we're attracting the very best and brightest capital across the country. There is nothing like this. You understand how much the markets have shifted in the last few months. And so capital will be competitive, and transit is what would allow us to make sure that we are at the top of everyone's list.
And what Abby's talking about is there's a social responsibility there as it relates to the sustainable approach of development. But then there's also the demand from our customer, and our customers are future residents and our future corporates, and our corporate tenants are looking at these things that Abby just mentioned about in terms of their social responsibility, their environmental responsibility, and our ability to attract the best companies to relocate, to expand their presence into Utah is incredibly important, and ultimately what our investors are looking for as well. So that Venn diagram of our institutional investors and our, Forbes 50 companies of what they're looking for, that diagram overlays quite a bit as it relates to transit and the ability to bring employees to Utah and have them be less dependent on the automobile and have a better quality of life, lower their transit times, have that adjacency time, or that adjacency to that transit allows for more time with their families, less time commuting. It's so important for our institutional investors and ultimately our customers, our corporates that are going to call the point home.
Thank you. And thanks for expanding that response. I think sometimes if we don't understand it, we think of transit as being an add-on amenity that would be nice. But from your response, and at least from what I understand, in today's market, it becomes critical. And so thank you for expanding on that. I think that's an important discussion. Any other comments from the board or questions? I don't see any indication. To our members of the commission, you'll notice that this matter is on the agenda for discussion, but also for action. And we have not yet completed the development agreement, and you're here advancing and adding additional clarification, which you've done today with your presentation and also is reflected in this model that's in front of us. We didn't talk about the model, but it's impressive. And it doesn't look like Legos to me. I want you to know that. So
Thank you.
do you, before we take any action, do you want to talk about this model because it's impressive?
Sure, we can talk a little bit about the model, and I would actually like to invite our partners back up to just give some general updates and kind of closing comments. But the model itself represents the phase one that we've kind of walked through. So it's a representation of just the collaboration, frankly, that we've had with Alan and his team. They're behind the representatives that you're seeing here, and behind Alan, there's just been a host of consultants that have weighed in on and collaborating to ensure that this project is addressing all of the lessons learned from previous developments, and also just allowing us the flexibility and the adaptation for future technologies to be integrated and for the future growth of the point. So thank you for that kind comments on the model, Abby.
Feel free to visit the model.
Yes.
You can pick up the buildings
Touch
and
it,
take a
yes.
look. So what we have committed to here in the phase one development is it's the mix of uses and the density that we feel confident that we can deliver, and that frankly, we have to deliver in order for the amenities to be at the quality we've identified today. And so while while long-term, there may be evolutions to the plan where we have to make slight modifications on, which product type is where, but what we are committed to is this blend of uses, almost 50% commercial, and then the density that is frankly a higher density than anywhere outside of downtown Salt Lake. So those two components are a major item that we're bringing to the board, as far as also these kind of imperatives like River to Range, like the promenade, that we know we have to deliver. So we are asking for the board's support today and approval on the plans that we've developed collaboratively with the Land Authority, and in order to advance the development agreement, which is going very well. We've had a great dialogue, good progress on the development agreement. It is no slight undertaking for a project this size and scale. And so we've, like we said at the beginning, we've been working in parallel paths, executing the design evolution along with the agreements.
Okay.
So with that, I think we're going to ask our Utah partners to also come and close us out.
So I think, Abby,
Mhm. Yes.
what you're saying for us as a board is these issues, the uses and the density, are important issues that we need to, if we can help decide those today, it allows us to move to the next phase and move towards a development agreement. Am I right about that?
Precisely.
Okay, so this is an
Precisely.
important juncture, even though today we don't anticipate necessarily we're not making final approval, but these are at important critical stages to allow us to move forward.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
All right,
true.
we'll turn the time to whoever you direct. It's like Lance and Kip, welcome back.
Thanks, everybody. And to the board for that presentation. Thanks to Abby and Matt for doing such a wonderful job and demonstrating just how good this vision has come together and how much of a collaboration this really has been. So on the development agreement, just briefly for a state of the state, obviously what we've just talked about, the design component is a part of this development agreement, of course. And so we've had 2 really long marathon collaborative meetings with much candor between both groups. And we feel like substantial progress has been made. The draft of the current term sheet is in our court. We expect to have that back next week. And many of those discussions that we have been having together have led to the conclusion of much of the business points that we have been needing to discuss in a team environment, and how can we align our interests long-term in the best way possible so that this could be a reality. So we're very encouraged and feel like the progress that has been made is substantial and getting to a point where a real concerted effort can be made to get the drafting of the agreement completed and ready for review as soon as we possibly can, based on one of these big milestones today moving forward.
Thanks, Lance. I'm going to close this out, Chairman. First of all, you can see how privileged and lucky I am to be able to work with this group of amazing people, and so incredibly proud of that opportunity to be able to do that. And you've seen us lay out this incredible plan. You guys had a vision. We took that vision and worked together to improve on it. And I just want to mention a couple of the key elements of that vision that I wrote down as they were speaking that we talked about. Trails, parking district, innovation district, transit, parks, walkability, promenade, place of taste, place making, bumpability, water conservation, renewable energy, arts, entertainment, programming, carbon reductions. There's a lot going on here in this project, and a lot of hard work's gone into it to bring it to this point. And you can see how amazing and wonderful that plan is. I'd also like to thank Alan and his staff, Scott, and all the people behind him, and Jim, for all the great cooperation. As you can see, this plan wasn't created in a vacuum. We worked hard together, and you can see the value of those fruits. We're so excited now to move this forward pending your guys' next meeting and work on the next phase of this to bringing this to be a reality. As a citizen of Draper, citizen of Utah, I'm so honored and proud to be able to work on this thing and to see this vision come to reality, to bring such a project to the people of Utah, something that's going to last many, many generations. And to be able to work in such a collaborative effort with the public is just an amazing opportunity. And I commit to you that I will work as hard as I can, and the IPP team will also work as hard as we can to make sure this is a success. And we look forward to doing that hand in hand with you guys. So thanks for the opportunity again.
Thank you, Kip. Thank you, Lance, for being here today and for all of your hard work. As I said just before your presentation, this matter is on our agenda for discussion, but also for possible action. And I think Abby and Matt did a good job of essentially outlining, making clear what they need, and to some extent what we need in order to move forward to the next phase. So Chair would entertain discussion or a motion. Let me go to Jim.
Yeah, I'm ready to make a motion when you're ready. I think that the motion that I'm going to make is a little bit complicated and will probably include some conversation from the board to refine it a little bit. So
Okay,
maybe we can conquer both with the same.
a motion is in order. So
All right, so before I make the motion, I want to recognize the incredible work that's been done by Director Matheson and his team. They've moved this project forward in a very thoughtful, professional, expeditious manner to get us to the point where we are today, and it's very exciting, and they put in a lot of work. And we just can't overemphasize the effort that they put in and the work they've done. We're extremely grateful and in debt to them for the work that's gone on. I mean, this has really moved forward really fast, and it needed to, and we're grateful for all the work that's been done. I want to give a more brief motion, but it really got complicated as I was looking at this. So to make it a little more brief, I want to add some things that I'll just title additional direction from the board. And those items could be added or subtracted from the board, and then they'll just be one line item within the motion, if that's okay.
I think that
Mr.
makes
Chairman.
sense, and your right to reserve or your reservation for motion is in order. So why don't you continue to give us some background to what you're going to do here?
Perfect. So I would like to add some additional, these are just some discussion points and things that I would like to add for additional direction to the board, and I'll add it by within the motion, but not read them all within motion. So first of all, the board recognizes that we can't be involved in every decision throughout this. And through this motion, we are empowering Director Matheson and his team to make decisions that keep the project moving forward on track in a timely manner, and then periodically report back on that stewardship. The second item would be the current IPP Phase 1 plan reflects the priorities that we heard during the extensive public process and makes positive refinements to the framework master plan previously adopted. We direct the staff to move forward and have the ability to make some refinements that maintain the high standards and uses we have set while ensuring the plan is practical from an economic and traffic perspective. The third item, we further direct that there shall be a high emphasis placed on the core Main Street area, Central Park, and River to Range, recognizing these areas are critical to the success of the development and that we only have one shot to get them right. We want to place an emphasis on meeting both the qualitative and quantitative goals of the project over schedule. So we want to put quality and quantity over schedule. Also, it is the board's desire to maintain a high level of input and control of the uses within this core area. The fourth item would be, like all land use plans, the Phase 1 plan will evolve with new ideas, changes in the market and other conditions. There may be some need to adjust how the project will be phased and delivered. The board desires that this be done in a way that does not in any way appear as a residential development. Furthermore, we want to reserve the uniqueness of the approved Phase 1 master plan. And then fifth, we continue to look forward and incorporate both current and future multimodal transit options with an emphasis there. And with those items, I would place the motion and then then we can move for discussion if that's appropriate.
All right.
Second.
But let's wait for a motion there,
Okay.
Mayor. Um,
So-
but I'm going to come back to you for a second. So those are the, I guess, subcategories of your motion that you're about to make.
Correct.
Am I right about that?
Yep.
Okay, and now for your motion.
Yeah, I move that the board determines that the phase one plan presented by IPP today represents the direction acceptable to the board at this stage. Further, we direct the staff to continue to work with IPP to create a more detailed plans consistent with the plans presented today. Third point, include a convergence hall at or near the phase one, the core of the phase one development. And 4, incorporate direction given by the board as titled additional direction from the board, which I just discussed.
All right.
Did I confuse you?
It doesn't confuse me, but if you ask me to restate the motion, I might struggle a little bit, but now, Mayor, do you feel like you can second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded.
That was 2 seconds.
Uh, The record will show 2 seconds, so that's a good thing. So procedurally, where we are, we have a motion on the table in a second, and it's a fairly complex and detailed motion. And I'm not going to try to go back all the way through it, but it is a motion that by the maker's own terms includes all of the 5 points that he outlined before he made the formal motion. And there, as I understand it, there are 3 parts then to your motion as well. 4. Well, I had 5 of the subcategories, but there are also 4 of the main motion.
Yeah, so the subcategories are the 4th item.
Oh,
We
okay. All
incorporate
right.
that
That's
direction.
right. The
Okay.
4th incorporates the
The
5 items.
Yes.
Now we're all clear
clear
on
as
this.
mud.
And it's quite a motion, but let me just say that the motion, I'm not going to try to restate the whole thing, but it includes everything that Jim has stated, but essentially, and you correct me if I'm wrong, generally speaking, subject to all of those terms and conditions and specifications, is it is a vote of confidence or a motion for a vote of confidence of this board to have IPP move forward with staff in the way that it's been presented. We're approving that subject to all of those conditions, limitations within the motion that you made. Have I stated that fairly?
Yes.
All right. Now, any discussion to the motion? Anyone want to speak to the motion?
This is April. I'd like to speak if you
Okay,
allow me.
April. We'll have you speak, April.
Thank you. Thanks, Abby and IPP team. Holy cow, that's a really good presentation, and I feel like we're really going in the right direction. Troy and Jim and Lowry and myself as board members have spent a lot of time going through the development meetings with a development agreement, and thanks to Alan and his team, that seems to be moving forward. So I'm really comfortable and like Jim's motion and glad that the mayor seconded it. So if Dawn or Lincoln or anyone else has questions, I just wanted to say I'm really comfortable with the whole thing and I think it's going in the right direction. Good job.
Thank you, April.
Mr. Chair, I
Mayor
have-
Ramsey would like to speak to the motion. Is that
Thank
right,
you.
Mayor?
Chair, I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you as well for that presentation. It was very helpful. I've been looking very forward to this morning and getting this additional information, and I've had previews and I just appreciated the information that was shared at large this morning with everyone. And thank you to everyone working on this. And I think the motion is a good motion. I know it's complex, but I think it is, and I'm supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Senator Fillmore.
Thank you. I just want to talk briefly about the accountability under this motion, and either the maker of the motion or perhaps Alan or you, Mr. Chair, could just answer just kind of a basic question is what will the board's oversight role be as staff is to ensure that staff and the consultants are living with all of the caveats and complexities of the motions that was laid out.
The question is, and we're gonna let the maker of the motion respond, and Director Matheson, but I think what you're speaking to, or the issue that you're raising, Senator, relates to as part of the motion, the delegation of certain powers, the empowering of Alan, our director, and staff to make some fine clarifications. And how does this board hold them accountable for those? Do I state your question correct, Senator?
Yes, that is, if the motion says they have the power to go forward, we're delegating them power within these guidelines. There's got to be some measurement by which the board says you have in fact done that, or you've overstepped our guidelines, right?
Right.
And I would just, what will that review process be?
And part of that analysis is what are the big decisions and what are the ones that are minor and that I think fall within the parameters of the motion. So let's go to Jim, the maker of the motion, and see if you'd like to have a response to that.
Yeah, perfect. Great question and comments. So we do need, as a board, need to maintain overall control, but there are some details that could be considered minor that we just can't bring everything back to the board. Obviously, everybody recognizes that. So in this motion, we basically accepted IPP's plan. And we are, by this motion, we're saying that we're allowing the staff and directing them to go forward and implement that plan. We're putting a high emphasis on the core areas, the Main Street, the Central Park, and the River to Range, that they not deviate from this plan. And that we put getting that plan right over the time it takes to get it. And then on, when you get outside of that area, there could be some decisions like, hey, if we want to move our residential just a little bit and our commercial over here a little bit, they're insignificant changes that still meet the intent. They still meet the quantitative and qualitative measures of this plan. They still meet the density and the uses. They're just moving them around. Those would be seen as insignificant things that the board, that Alan and his team could make decisions and then report back to us. And in that reporting back, that's where the accountability is, right? This in my mind, puts a lot of responsibility on Alan to be able to make sure that what is being done is consistent with the board's desires and with this plan and with what we've laid out, but it also empowers him to do the same as well. And so I don't know if that completely answers it, but the accountability part is that monthly when we meet here, there'll be an accounting of what's happened. And if we see that the things are going down the wrong path in the wrong direction, we surely have the option as a board to take action and correct that.
Thank you, Jim. Senator, if you'll stand by, I think Director Matheson would like to also address the issue. Let me get your line.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's a really important question. I mean, we just are committed to accountability to the public and to this board. And ultimately, the board is the decision-making body. I think with respect to our process over the next few weeks and months, we've created a board subcommittee with Representative Snow, Jim Russell, April Cooper, and Mayor Walker, who are reviewing the process as we go. And so they'll be seeing changes that we're contemplating in this proposed phase 1 development plan. But before we move ahead, this board is going to review and make a determination whether to enter into the development agreement. And these development plans will be appended to that agreement. So you'll have a chance to, again, review any refinements to the plan over the coming days and approve them as part of a development agreement evaluation. Beyond that, I think included in that development agreement will be governance and review process and system. And as Jim said, there will be major modifications and minor modifications. We all know that any plan that's dealing with land use necessarily changes over time with circumstances. But we're setting up a development review committee with experts on it that will review
plans for each of the parcels and the buildings. There are opportunities for appeals to the board. And so it'll be a careful and rigorous structure that will allow for ongoing evaluation of not just the broad phase one plan, but the individual parcel proposals that come in through that process.
Senator, I've got another comment to make, but I wondered if you had further questions and maybe.
No, thank you.
Let
I
me-
like the responses. I would just wanted to get those on the record. And I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you. Given the director's response about the fact that this delegation of powers, Jim, I think is limited in that ultimately these will find their ways into the final development agreement. And so I can't tell you what to do, but wondered if you would mind or consider, not mind, but consider amending your motion to this grant of authority to Alan and staff is for preliminary approval of those changes, subject to them being incorporated and becoming a part of the final development agreement, which, as Alan states, is correct, would have to be approved by this board. I would also say that one of the things that the director will do, either as this process goes along or as our final approval, would be an outline in detail of all of those changes that have been made under those delegated preliminary approval powers. So what do you think of that, Jim?
That would be, I would be amenable to that. I'm just fixing it right now.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to go back to the maker of the motion. Did you want to add additional language or text to your motion?
Yeah, let me,
Cece, you're with us and I'm glad you are, and I'm glad I don't have your job to,
you know what? I'll email this to her.
Okay.
I gotta
okay,
deal with her every day, so
All
I
right.
don't want her mad at me. So
okay.
I
Well,
get the joy of dealing with
Cece, we're glad you're with us and going to help us synthesize this, so.
So I think that I've changed the first item on the additional direction to say the board recognizes that we can't be involved in every decision, and through this motion, we are empowering Director Mathis and his team to make preliminary decisions that keep the project moving forward on track in a timely manner, and then periodically report to the board and receive further direction. and
Okay.
Approval.
Thank you, Jim. And with that amendment, Mayor Walker, does your second hold?
It does.
It does. Okay, I'm not going to try to restate. I think we all have it in mind. This is a little out of order, but I'm going to ask our partners, our IPP partners, your response will not affect our vote, but I think it's important that the board know whether or not you can support this motion as you understand it. I see thumbs up, so I'm taking that as a yes. All right, with that, then we will place the motion for a vote. All in favor of the motion as described in great detail, but I think we all understand it. Please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries. And Jim, thank you very much for the motion, and board for helping us wade through that. But I think it's a good motion, and I think it lays out a really good process for us to move forward. And let me just say to our IPP presenters, thank you for being here today for your presentation. The next items on the agenda are to go into executive session, so I wanted to make that statement in case you're not here when we come out of there. And thanks for your efforts to collaborate. We know that these things are complex and takes a lot of work, but thanks for sticking with us, and we'll stick with you if we can make that progress. So thanks. So next two items on the agenda require us to move into executive session. State law now provides that for us to review proposals, that we can handle those in executive session. So with that, Chair would entertain a motion to move into closed session. Representative Hanny moving that we move into closed session for both items 5 and 6.
I'll
Do I have a
second.
Second. Was that April?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, April. It's moved and second. We move into closed session to discuss items 5 and 6 on the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. We will change locations and go into closed session.
This is the second session of the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority, December 13th meeting.
So before we take a motion to adjourn, I just want to pay tribute to my friend and my colleague, Representative Handy. This is his last meeting as a member of this board. And he has been the representative from the House, and he's been here from the beginning. And a huge support of everything that we're trying to accomplish in this place. I can't say enough about him, not only his leadership on this board, but his leadership in the House of Representatives. He will be missed. And Muriel, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is that Steve had, Representative Handy had something to do with the rebranding. Absolutely. Of the name The Point. And I want to make sure that he gets credit and knows that we appreciate that, because it's stuck, not just in our state, but nationally and even internationally. And for generations to come, I believe, we will recognize this place as The Point, and that was one of your contributions. So I told Representative Handy I wanted to give him just a few minutes if he'd make a few comments before we take a motion to adjourn.
That's very, very kind of you. And as, that this has been a really a great assignment that came to me from the speaker. And I really have enjoyed working with each one of you, and we have made a lot of progress. I think back to the time when Alan's appointed, he's running around not knowing what he's doing, having no staff and having no direction, and things came together because really good people want to do and accomplish good things, and that's where we're going. And I just feel I'll feel a great feel of satisfaction as we're going forward, watching what the board is doing and what's happening at The Point. Exciting developments, and it's going to be a great thing for the people of the state of Utah. We've learned so much together. So just well wishes to each one of you, and a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and best progress here in this exact thing. And so to Scott and to Alan and all of the great staff, the best to you, and it's been a great thing working with each of you. Thank you for what you've done for me.
Thank you very much, Steve. Maybe we can give him a hand.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, with that, the chair would entertain a final motion. Would that be you, Jim, making that? Your motion is motion to adjourn. Do I have a second of that? Representative Handy? Yes, second by Representative Handy. All in favor of that motion to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your patience allowing us to close out our official meeting. We'll stick around for a bit for anyone who wants to visit with members of the board. Thanks.